Hi, my name is Ryan Sloan, and I want to welcome you to this episode of the Gear Cage. And today we're going to be talking about another very kind of current event topic, but it is something that can apply, even once we're past the pandemic here. And that is getting better streaming audio in either a live stream setup or a pre-recorded setup easily. So there's just a lot of confusion with regards to how people do that. And honestly, you can have the best quality video in the world. You can have 4K resolution with a great lens and a great image sensor. But the reality is, if your audio isn't up to the task, people are going to be not as engaged with it. So audio is a critical part, potentially more important than video even, because your mind can visualize things. That's why talk radio or podcasts work. But yeah, again, if the video quality is great and the audio is terrible, people are just going to lose interest. So I wanted to take you behind the scenes on how I record this show and channel and show you that you can actually do some of these things as well, both in your live streams and in your pre-recorded content to get better quality audio. So, the biggest thing, and I think the biggest place that I see people making mistakes in is using the built in video camera audio for their content. Typically, these are okay for, up close, quiet encounters, but they just don't really fare well in a larger environment or especially when you're further away. So, in the situation where you're at a church, you might have a camera 20, 30, 40 feet away. And I've seen some churches try to use their sound system and actually have the sound from the speakers go into the microphone on the camera. That's not going to really create great audio. And I've also seen people try to use like an analog board and just take it right out of the board into the camera. And that will usually be better, but there's a happy medium, I think, here. And I wanted to talk about that today. And in fact, let me pull out my phone and actually we'll use this as a second source video here, and we'll actually show you video of the setup here that we're using to get this audio so you can get a better understanding of how this is actually going to work. So bear with me as we get this fired up here. All right, now we're live on this camera, so you're actually seeing this feed right now. So as we're going here and we're going back here, you can see the way the studio looks here. And you'll notice we have a shotgun microphone right up here. This is a Rode NTG4. And this is actually recording the audio that you're hearing on this video. Now, it's not, believe it or not, going directly into the camera. It's actually going into the computer, into the audio interface. So that's another key thing to keep in mind. If you send your audio directly in, cameras usually aren't well suited for handling that. So you're not going to get the best results. So we're going to log into the computer here in a second and show you how we're processing the audio and also how we're joining it at the end with the video to get the best results. But I did want to give you a sense again of what this setup looks like right here as we're looking here. So you can see the lighting, you can see the microphone and all of that. Honestly, it's also not a terrible idea to have a wireless microphone for something like this, especially in the case of like a pastor. You might wear a wireless lavalier microphone, send that to your board, which then gets sent to a recording program and then to your end users. So as I mentioned, this is actually going to an audio interface right now. So if we follow this cable over here, we'll actually see that it goes over to an Apollo over here. So the Apollo is actually recording the audio to a computer that is then recording in Pro Tools. So if we go over here, we can see that Pro Tools is up and running and recording what we're saying right now. And this is a very basic setup, but even if you're running more channels, the same process actually does apply. So whether you're doing a church worship band, a panel of speakers, or even just one pastor speaking, the process is the same, just either smaller or larger, depending on your situation. Now, let's say you are doing more of a live stream with a full-on worship team and all of that. At that point, you'll want to do what we're doing over here, and pardon the audio as we drop over here. Shotgun mics are more directional, but you can see we're using, an X32 in some cases for doing streaming because you have all the inputs here. You have snake inputs that you could be using, but the key is you also have USB connectivity, or in this case, we have Dante connectivity for recording specifically. So as long as you have a digital board or a recording interface, then you can easily capture a higher quality video content. So those are the key components that we need. So we're recording multiple tracks of audio either into a digital mixer or into an audio interface and taking that into the computer via software. So once that's in the computer, then it's time to edit, it's time to process, and then combine it with the video. So let's actually go over to the computer now and record that part of the process to give you a handle for how that would be done. And believe it or not, it's actually just a few clicks to get it done. So it's not as difficult as you may think. So hold on one second and we'll get this going over here for you in just a second. Okay, now we're actually here on the desktop. So now you can see that the audio is coming in through the audio interface into Pro Tools here in audio channel 2, and we can see it recording as we go here. So once this process is done, we actually will end up applying our processing, and I use a few things specifically for this. I will use Neutron by Isotope as well as RX7. And there's actually two big reasons that I'm using these particular products. And one, Neutron, is just to get a good sound on the way in. Neutron will actually help you with your mixes in terms of like the EQ sound and doing compression, doing limiting, and just doing some tonal things to the audio going into the session. So you can get a good sound that way. So it is important to do that editing and get the sound that way. And you can do this for a live stream too. You can actually pre-do all of the tracks in a recording session and marry it up with a video in real time. That is something you can absolutely do. So keep that in mind as well. And then as far as RX goes, RX is a core piece of technology too, because you saw from the video of the room itself, it's not a treated room. And actually treating your room for acoustics is an important thing because that helps stop the reflections. If I were to turn off RX, you would just hear the room reflections and the noise of the room as far as the ambient noise goes, and that actually wouldn't sound fantastic either. So these two tools are critical to getting a good sound, not only from like a home studio like this or an office like this, but also if you are recording a pastor's sermon, if you are recording a worship band, you can use these tools to fine tune everything and get a better overall quality sound. So once we have this done, we effectively bounce this down to a stereo WAV file. And you can actually see another video on the desktop here for the Planning Your Album video that I've done. And I've just basically exported the final mix. You know, it goes through a limiter, Maxim in this case, to get the audio quality where we want it to be and make sure it's, you know, loud enough, but not so loud that it's blowing your head off basically when it comes through. So once that's happening, we again get the file here on the desktop. And the next part is something that years ago was actually pretty crazy to think about even doing, because you used to have to do this manually. But now you're actually able to, if we're looking here, go through. And as we're looking at this, we can see for the other video I just did on Pro Tools licensing, we can see a few of the items here. And I don't have the file linked right now to the hard drive. But if I did, you would actually see that video right here. And this is a key thing when we are doing audio and video syncing. So what you do is take your video clip that would pop up, for instance, down here, and click on that. And this is Final Cut Pro specific, but other applications also will work the same way. So you've got your video file, and then you have your audio file, and you just control click them both because you want to highlight both of the clips here. And once you have them both highlighted, And I'm sorry, it's command click, not control click. Once you have them both highlighted, then you hit control over both of them, and then you just go to where it says synchronize clips. And once you do this, it will marry your video audio with the camera audio. It'll sync them together so they become one file, and it will remove the original camera audio that probably doesn't sound very good if you're just running a camera with a microphone on its own, or even if you're just hooking a room microphone up to the camera. It's just not going to give you great audio. This is a way to dramatically improve the quality of the audio. So once you do that, you get your final clip and just drag it down to the timeline and do any editing that you would like to do. So that's another benefit of doing it this way. If something just doesn't sound right, or if you want to make it a tighter timed broadcast, you can do that just by going on your timeline and doing the editing down here. So that's really all it takes at that point. So I hope this video has shown you a little bit about how to do that. If you do have any other questions, just let me know.